wajibs of Hajj. Number one is wuquf for Muzdalifah. Don't worry about the illustration, the procedure. That will come inshallah in the next session. Stationing at Muzdalifah. You station at Muzdalifah after Arafah. So this is the 10th now, 10th of Zil-Hijjah. Number two is Sa'i. Sa'i means running between Safa and Marwah. That's wajib. Number three, a Qarin and a Mutamatti. I'll explain those terms shortly. Qarin and a Mutamatti, to sacrifice an animal. So in other words, they have to sacrifice an animal. The one who is a mufrid, right, who's only performing Hajj by itself, Qurbani is not compulsory upon them. It's just mustahab. Number four, Rami of Jamarāt. You know the stoning the Jamarāts. You know the 3 shaitans? By the way, they're not actual shaitans there, okay? I remember once I went Umrah and went to Ziyarat. So there were some kids, right? They were saying, I want to see shaitan, I want to see shaitan. I said, come on, I'll take you, I'll show you shaitan. In the old days, they had those old pillars. And he's literally sticking his head out of the van. Goes, where's shaitan? I goes, in front of you. He goes, only a stone. I go, he's probably hiding in there. He goes, can I go see it? You know, kids in about 10 years old, right? But anyways, just to understand, you know, those peltings of shaitans, okay, they represent the time. Now, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he narrates that the time when Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he received the instructions by Allah that you have to sacrifice your son. What was it? What was the son, by the way? Ismail alayhi salatu salam. Ismail alayhi salam, he was the sacrificial child, okay? Now, whilst he was making his way, there was an old man who was repulsive, with a very repulsive figure, and he interjected and tried to dissuade and sway Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam from the instruction. Because he being the Nabi of Allah, he knew that was Iblis, the shaitan. So both father and son, they began to pelt. They pelt him. And the narration states that they pelt him until he sunk into the ground. And then they were walking, he appeared again. They pelted, he sunk into the ground. The third attempt, they pelted him, they pelted the shaitan, and sunk into the ground, never appeared after that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liked this ritual so much that included this as part of the ritual acts of Hajj. So that's the basic story behind it. This is narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu. Anyways, shaving the head, obviously you have to shave the head. Tawaf al-Wida for an afaqi only. Now, I don't want to explain this. Tawaf al-Wida is the last and a farewell tawaf that you perform, right? There's a misconception, say that when you perform Umrah only, when you're going for Umrah, you have to perform Tawaf al-Wida. Tawaf al-Wida is compulsory for Hajj only. When you're going for Umrah, there's no such thing as Tawaf al-Wida. It's a misconception. I received a case once that somebody said, look, I've just gone to perform Umrah. This was outside of Hajj, but I missed my Tawaf al-Wida. Do I need to give it down? I go, there's no Tawaf al-Wida for you. It's only for Hajj. The Prophet ﷺ said Tawaf al-Wida is only for Hajj. And this is for afaqi. Afaqi basically are those who live beyond the boundaries. You know, the miqat, the boundaries, that's basically us, basically, right? So those who live in Makkah, or those that live within the vicinity or around the vicinity of Makkah, they don't do tawaf al-wida. Why? Because they live in those areas, regions. But for us, we are the afaqi, we live beyond the boundary. We live beyond the boundary. For us, tawaf al-wida is wajib. For Hajj only, not for Umrah. And finally, wuquf Arafah from Zawāl and to sunset. Now, just to understand, I mentioned wuquf Arafat, stationing at Arafat is fard, even for a few seconds. But staying from Zawāl, which is just before Dhuhr time, up until sunset, that duration period is wajib. Yes, remember. So the act of stationing in wuquf Arafat for a few seconds is fard. But the duration between Zawāl, which is just before Dhuhr time, up until sunset, that duration period is wajib. Note, any of the above acts omitted without a valid what's happened here? There. So note that any of the above acts omitted without a valid excuse would require a penalty. So if you miss any of the above without a valid excuse, your Hajj is fulfilled, but you have to give a penalty. I'll explain the laws of penalty shortly. However, if omitted due to a valid reason, then there is no penalty required. Okay, so I will give you examples. So if somebody was to omit any of them for a valid reason, okay, for a valid reason, then there is no penalty required, then it's marked. There's another wajib that I would like to add here, is performing Tawaf Ziyarat. You can even add this as well. Performing Tawaf Ziyarat within the time space of between 10th Zil-Hijjah and 12th Zil-Hijjah. So that's the period, that's the duration performing Tawaf Ziyarat. So performing it during that time is wajib. If somebody was to perform their Tawaf Ziyarat after the 12th Zil-Hijjah, right? 12, like 13, 14, 15, then you have to give a dam for that.